you were in the Hells Angels from 77 to 2011?
76 to 2011, but you have to understand, like, walked into that world in 1966 while I was surfing still.
Yeah.
I was surfing and riding, and some of the guys were Stevie Binger was a very proficient surfer from Silver Strand.
Yeah.
Him and John Schomer, John Carlson, he went by two names. He was a shaper as well. And Duty Juarez, these guys all hung out at Silver Strand.
Yeah.
And I started going to the beach with them. And Stevie wound up, he was one of the first guys to get a motorcycle.
Yeah.
And he became, him and I were good friends, but he became a member of the Hessians. And I drifted towards the Hells Angels, you know. And I initially hung out with a bike club called the Question Marks.
Yeah.
And then they introduced me to the Saint and Slaves, and then the Saint and Slaves introduced me to the Hells Angels.
Okay. So let's go back a little bit. Let's go to you when you got your first board.
Okay.
You were 12?
12 or 13. And, you know, what's interesting is my mom kind of come from poverty. You know, we were very rich, lived from hand to mouth. I remember my dad at one time passing out, there was a new cleaning product on the market, Mr. Clean. Mm-hmm. And I remember as a kid, I was kind of like tripping on the guy because he looked very powerful. He had the shaved head and the earring and the crossed arms. And he got $3 a day for passing out samples.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I mean, we were broke, you know.
Yeah. Well, I remember you told the story about that you wanted the hamburger box, Big Boy, and the whole, what transpired.
Digging through the, my dad took the seats out of the car, and my mom and him and I, we were all rooting through the fuzz balls and dirt and whatnot, putting money together.
Yeah.
And people were laughing at us. And I thought they were laughing because they thought what we were doing was cool, because I kind of thought it was cool. I go, man, we're like on a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
And then I saw the look on my mother's face, and my mother said something to my father in Greek, which I understood at the time. I don't understand Greek much now. Nobody talks it around me. But I realized they were laughing at us, not with us. And it was kind of a big epiphany for me that day. And I've really... That day, I thought, man, I'm never going to be broke.
Yeah.
And, you know, it would kind of perhaps set me in the direction, you know, as an adult. But
survival mechanism.
Sure, yeah. But I remember my father was going to, now I don't know why he ever even considered this. He was trying to get a McDonald's franchise, and it was $25,000 for the franchise.
Yeah.
And I remember as a little kid, in the mind of a child, said over 1 million served. You know, they had the and I was like, we'll never be broke again. You know.
Now, didn't your father own a restaurant?
He did own a restaurant. He owned a restaurant in Oxnard called the Old Timer that had a brief stint of success. And then him and his partner, you know, another family member, got into beef, and the whole thing unraveled, and you know.
And your grandfather was a cobbler.
He was a shoe repairman
place on the avenue,
Ventura Avenue, Blacey's Shoe Repair.
Wow.
And my grandmother, well, all my grandparents came from Greece. My grandmother was betrothed to my grandfather that had the shoe repair place. Yeah. And she got on the boat when she was 12. He came over the year before, established himself, and waited for her on the eastern part of the country.
That's exactly what my grandparents did.
Yeah, and she came over a year later. She got on the boat. She was 12. She gets off the boat. She's 13, and they get married and, you know, live for 70 years together. You know, just
wild.
Old school.
Such a different time.
Yeah, old school loyalty, and you know, we were Greeks. We were like outsiders, and I think that that really suspicion and not feeling like being part of the groove of maybe what this country was supposed to be. You know, we weren't white, and you know, it kind of helped.
Can you talk about, because you were bullied?
I was a little bit, yeah.
Can you talk about how that changed your life?
Well, yeah, I came home one day and I was upset. And I was probably first or second grade. I don't remember. And my father said, "What happened?" And he said, "I said, well, somebody hit me today." You know. And he goes, "Well, what'd you do?" And I go, "Nothing. I ran." You know. And he goes, "Is that how you're going to live your life?" And kind of like, "Oh, wow." So a few days later, you know, we're having dinner again at night, and he said, "Anything happened today?" And I go, "Well, remember that guy that hit me?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I go, "Well, I clocked him today." And my dad goes, "What happened?" And I go, "He ran. He was crying." And my dad said, "Well, don't turn into a bully, man." You know, so it was kind of a mixed signal,
right?
You know?
It's like, how did you process that?
Yeah, and I think that in the future, when I became a negotiator for the Hells Angels with these bike clubs, I mean, we were having serious issues with them. I mean, blowing each other up, and you know, people talk about the '70s. You know, well, unless you were there, man, you know, you don't know. You know.
So when you were bullied, then there was a period where you came back to school because you were bullied you were kind of a chubby
I was
kid.
A little bit overweight.
Yeah, then you came back, and then people wanted to be your friend because you were a skinny, good-looking dude.
Yeah, I was surfing, and I was, you know, were like, dressing different.
Yeah.
And I didn't dig it, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, you guys last year didn't like me.
Right.
Now you like me.
Now you want to be my friend. Boy, isn't that how society works, right?
So, you know, I mean, I had a lot of adverse feelings about that. Also in school, I took an intelligence test, and I don't know how high I scored. I don't know how they score them, but I did something that really caught the school board's attention because they called me in the office. They thought I had got the answer book somehow.
Okay.
And they wanted the answer book back. And that was kind of the nail in the coffin for me as far as, you know, society, you know. And I never got an apology. You know, I'm in there arguing with him. He tells my parents, you know, he stole the book. We know he stole the book. He's not that smart. I mean, you know, they're having.
Did you cheat?
No.
Because I've heard the story a few times. I'm like, I can't remember. Like,
no, I never cheated.
Okay.
I took the test.
And then that's when your mom said what she said.
Yeah.
Like, if my boy said he didn't cheat.
Yeah, she goes, if he said he didn't cheat, he didn't cheat. Because initially, at first, they were kind of like, you know, they're in this office with this man that's highly educated. My dad didn't, you know, my dad quit school at 6th grade, I think.
Yeah.
You know, here's a guy highly educated, a pillar of society, if you will, and entrusted with our youth. And, you know, he's in there telling my parents, your son's a thief.
Right.
That's basically what he was saying, you know. And I'm saying, absolutely not. I didn't cheat. I didn't, I just took the test, you know.
That had to be rough, man.
Yeah, it was. And, you know, what's interesting is, for some reason, school didn't interest me. I was also dyslexic.
Right.
Very difficult for me to read.
They didn't.
Nobody even knew what it was.
That
you know?
shit.
And, you know, I remember my dad and I had a conversation one time, and came back from the Marines, and I was trying to go to college. It didn't last long, but I was trying to go to college. And my dad said, so you like school? And I go, not really. And he goes, yeah. He goes, man, when I look at papers and stuff, he goes, all the letters and everything moves around and they flip-flop. Same thing with me. And I looked at him and I said, really? I go, that's what happens to me. And, you know, and then we went on to the next subject.
Right.
You know, it was
didn't
like,
dwell on it.
No, and it wasn't any profound, you know,
right.
Something that I discovered, you know.
Right.
It was just, Oh yeah. I have trouble reading too. And then we went on to the next subject.
Yeah. And so you're about, how old are you at that point when
The test in high school?
Yeah, the authoritarian stuff.
I was a senior, I believe, in high school, and for a while there, I was thinking I was a junior, but I was thinking about it a couple of days ago, and I realized I was going to join the Marines. That night I went home and I said, I'm done with these guys. I said, if this is polite society, I don't want anything to do with it. I'm going to join the Marines, but I need both your signatures because I was only 17. And
let me you're at Camarillo High?
Camarillo High.
Oh my God. What a trip.
Yeah. Mr. Killingsworth and Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson was the truant officer. I got a really great story about Mr. Johnson.
Let's hear it.
Where Willie Compton and I get in trouble. I think it was Willie. And it was either Willie Compton or Vaughn Lammers, who we called him Bird.
Yeah.
And we got in trouble. Got kicked out of school. Mr. Johnson was going to take us home, and then they, get out of the car and go into your house. And the only car available was the driver's ed car. And Mr. Johnson's driving. Willie's sitting in the front seat, shotgun. I'm in the back seat. I think it was Willie. And they have pedals. You can slip on the brakes. And so Willie keeps slamming the brakes on the freeway.
Pedals on both sides.
Yeah. It was a driver's ed car, and we're peeling out on the freeway, and Johnson's flipping out.
Classic.
Yeah, he goes, okay, Mr. Johnson, I won't do it again, and looking at me and winking yeah, and then bam, he lays on it again. But
oh my God.
This is the kind of shit we pulled in school. I mean. Were we bad kids? I don't know. I didn't see it as being bad. I just
kids.
Just wanted to have fun,
I think Mr. Johnson was the guy that busted me behind the bus barn, Camarillo High. He was at that time, I think he was the vice principal.
Very possible.
And he busted me drying weed behind the bus barn, and I got kicked out of school.
Is that right? Yeah, it's funny what year was that,
That would have been 82.
83. 83. Georgie, my boy, little George, started taking all these ag classes, and I was going, what are you doing taking ag classes? What's this all
FFA,
about? Yeah, and he never really answered me. And then when the harvest came in, I found out why.
I see.
I had like a big house in Oakview, and this is in the '80s, and there was a shed way off by itself. I had built a new garage with a top of the line bike shop in it and all this stuff. So I never went to the old shed. And I happened to go over there for something, and I opened the door, and it's all hanging, drying out.
Wow. There, It's got his own little
his own little cartel
going on. Yeah. So let's go back. You were talking about the avenue, and I loved you were talking about all the homes back then.
Yeah.
Went
right up to the ocean.
Yeah.
And then they ultimately they declared eminent domain, and didn't give the people shit for them. And we had the House of the Rising Sun down there.
Okay, let's talk about that.
And
for those that don't know, this was that big house, White House, 3 windows, and
right on the beach.
Yeah, and
the surf would come right up.
Right. It was pretty much where the Holiday Inn is now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And describe what went on there, because I've got photos of huge parties.
There was a guy there that I remember. He was one of the main guys. Resinetti, they called him. And I was just a little, I was 15. I don't know how old I was, 16. I think 15 when I first started hanging out there.
Wow.
And I know we'd go in there and drink wine and beer, and first starting to take LSD. There's a lot of LSD floating around Ventura. You ever heard of a guy, Ron Benner? He was a surfer, and he was taking acid, and he would wear a gun on his waistband, because they didn't have any laws in Ventura. They actually made a city ordinance so he couldn't wear his gun anymore.
Really?
Yeah. He was a just a real powerful guy. Tom Carlson was another. I don't know if you heard him. He was a really good.
From you, I've heard who he
Yeah,
is.
real good surfer. He became a member of the Orphans. But
All these guys lived in that house?
well, people, you don't know really who lived in the house.
Because so many guys were there.
Yeah, it would just come and go. But this guy Resonati, he had kind of a blonde on blonde Bob Dylan type haircut.
Yeah.
And there was another guy, and I thought of his name a couple of days ago, anticipating us talking.
Yeah.
Steve, that was his name.
Okay.
And he was totally into the whole scene. People were taking these nose inhalers and somehow doing something with stuff inside and making these, like homemade crank,
Oh,
or
wow,
speed
okay.
in the early days.
Yeah.
And
This is early 60s.
yeah,
Okay.
this is early '60s. But the house had a bomb hanging from it. And,
What do you mean a bomb?
well, it was a shell of a bomb. It was a bomb.
Like those classic shells with the wings on the back?
Yeah, with the round. It was hanging off there, and it had House of the Rising Sun, a big sign, and we were the local guys.
Yeah.
And I was a kid, but it was a pecking order.
Yeah.
And I've talked about that before, and that was Ventura's area. And
Did they make you do stuff as a little grunt
no,
to kind of
well, yeah,
like, hey, go get us food?
yeah, shit like that.
Yeah.
But nothing like I would have to do ultimately as a Hell's Angel prospect. But just good times, man.
Yeah,
It was
a lot of
fun.
partying.
A lot of parties, a lot of girls. Just
You got a smile that's a mile wide right now.
I'm just thinking about. I remember they get in the back of a pickup and they put the it was El Camino with I forget what year the El Caminos first came out. I think it was the El Camino, and it had the tarp that had the buttons on it.
Yeah.
And you could, and they were in the back screwing, and they pull into the guy's going like this to everybody, be quiet, and they pull in. I don't think it was there. I think it was up at Froster Freeze or something, and then gets everybody together around, and then pulls the tarp back. They're going at it like rabbits. Just I don't know, crazy shit.
What was the surf culture then? So you were 15 years old. You'd been in it for a couple of years. You got your first board at 13. I think you got your second board from Dewey Weber, right?
Dewey Weber, right? I talked my dad into taking me down.
I can't believe this because you were not a rich family, and these were not cheap boards.
No, they weren't. It was. I think the board was like $125, which was a lot of dough at that time.
Yeah.
So I got to have this Dewey Weber board.
And where was the shop for Dewey Weber at that time?
South Bay.
Damn.
I don't remember.
So this was a whole thing.
Oh yeah. So we go down there, and so I tell my dad. I say, look, man, I don't want you embarrassing me. I'm going to go in there. We'll just take a look around. Like, I never thought that we would buy a board.
No way.
My dad had, I don't know where he got the dough, but
Right.
So I'm in there, and I walk in there, and they had a pit in the middle of the shop. And they got logs in it.
Yeah.
And they're warming up, and Dewey Weber's there, and his hair looks like it's down to his shoulders, and Harold Iggy is there, and I recognize both of them immediately, and I'm like, oh fuck, man,
Starstruck.
yeah, I mean, man, these are the real deal.
Yeah.
And then comes in my dad. My dad just blows the whole thing for me. He walks up to the fire thing and acts like he's warming his hands and shit. But Dad was a fucking cool guy.
That's classic.
He goes, "Hey Dewey, what's going on, man?" Iggy, he recognized him from Surfer magazine.
Are you dying right now?
Oh man, I'm just feeling like this big. And then he goes, "Now this is remember when they had I don't know about now the surfing culture because I've been out of it for so many years, but they had the Ho Daddy and all the names." So Weber says to my dad says to Weber, "Can you fix this Grimmy up with a surfboard?" And I'm just like, Mother
Want to crawl in a
fucker,
hole.
man. And then I realized, fuck, I'm going to get a board. So
Yeah.
put down payment on a board. They shaped me a board. We put a down
You got a
payment on
custom
it.
board.
Yeah, and you know, Weber's treat me like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And Iggy was indifferent, kind of. He was cool, but
Yeah.
but Weber was the man. It was his shop.
Yeah.
And
Little man on wheels, right?
yeah,
He
so
was
I
the best.
with those giant kickbacks,
Yeah.
So I, a couple of weeks, 3 weeks later, I can't remember how long, I go back and I
You got your
I
board.
got my Dewey Weber, man.
Beautiful board.
Beautiful board. I got the big decal. You could get the small one
Yeah.
or the medium one. I wanted the big one.
Was it like a triple stringer?
Yeah, yes. With it didn't have the squared off tail.
Okay.
I don't think. I remember it having a pointed tail, and they were trying to decide, were you surfing beach breaks or point?
Yeah.
And that's what
Did
Dewey.
it have the big chop fin or the big square one?
Yeah, it was a big fin. Yeah,
10-foot board, 9-foot?
that board I think was 9.6.
Yeah.
And then I went later. I got a Harbor. I got the banana board. Was 10 foot.
Oh, you got a Harbor.
Yeah, I got a Harbor next. And,
So what was your spot? Cove, inside point?
my spot was the C Street inside point, and then we started going up to the horse stables.
Okay.
And that's when the horse stables were actually there.
They were actual stables.
There were actual horse stables. They're right on the beach. And, they take the horses out,
Yeah.
put them in the water and all that shit. We surfed there, and then we went up to the river mouth, and we called it the pipe.
The pipe, yeah.
And, there was raw sewage.
There was that one pipe.
Yeah, and it was at the end, it went out. It kind of built its way up and then came up on kind of, I guess, some sort of stilts or something. And there was actually like a raw sewage coming out of it.
Yeah, and I heard people got super sick.
Yeah, we would go up there and surf, try to stay away from the sewage. And just...
I did a post on that once, and then people were like, the comments were, I got so sick, and I got so sick. They just were constantly telling how sick they got from that.
Really? I
stuff
don't
that
remember
came
getting
out of
like
that
real
pipe.
sick, but I remember,
Well, you're a badass.
Yeah, well, maybe that's it. Why didn't I think of that?
I don't know.
I guess it's come so natural to me. It's just
You just drink it.
But that was where we surfed, and I had drifted away from Silver Strand.
Yeah.
Now, that was a rough area to hang out in.
Well, let's talk about that. You had some friends down in Oxnard,
Right.
and that was during kind of the gnarliest localism time.
Oh, man.
And it was kind of the, as you put it, the fuck everyone. That's where you learned that whole attitude.
Right.
And what did that mean exactly?
If you weren't from there, fuck you. That's exactly what it meant. And I remember, and I think I told the story, and you may have heard the story. You probably have, when John Schomer, you could really tell there was a pecking order. And I learned real quick about the pecking order because John was kind of like my hero, John Schomer, John Carlson. And then when other people, like the Lowry brothers, would come around, his demeanor would change just a little bit. And then when...
Oh, I see, because he was a little more...
He was a little bit higher on the pecking order. The Lowry brothers were like tough guys. And then... Duty was at the top of the totem pole.
Duty Juarez.
And then Lowry brothers would check themselves
when Duty came around.
Duty came around, and so I started learning all this stuff. Nobody's telling me.
Right.
I'm just picking up on it, And so John and I spent a day surfing. We had gone. I think we'd been up to Stanley's or something, maybe, and that was like a venture out.
How was that spot?
Oh,
I've heard
man.
so much about that.
That was
spot.
just incredible, And I used to ride that, the big oil, whatever it's called, the derrick.
Yeah.
Would go up and down.
Yeah.
And I rode it. I used to get on it and ride it and drink wine. And, we used to take wine and we'd go out to the kelp line and tie the wine off on the kelp line.
Yeah.
and keep it cold. And then we'd get a buzz on like surfing.
Right.
And, I remember some hot shot. Now I surfed with some big name surfers before, and I can't remember this guy's name, but he came up there and I knew who he was. People was going, yeah, so and so's up here today.
Oh, okay.
We're at Stanley's.
Yeah.
And I saw him put a whistle on.
Okay.
What the fuck? What's this all about? And he goes out in the water, and even though we'd had like good relationships on this beach with him,
Yeah.
he gets out in the water and he starts blowing the whistle. And if he blows the whistle, it means you don't get on his wave because he's so and so.
Oh, shit.
And I mean, we fucked him up real quick.
Did you?
Yeah, just run that guy off.
I love it.
He
Just
went back
drop
to
in
South Bay. But I surfed with Rick Irons one time.
Okay.
And the guy was a gentleman, man.
Yeah.
And just unbelievable
Yeah.
surfer. Just great. We were up at the horse stables by ourselves.
And he showed up.
He showed up, and I recognized him. I mean, I was a big fan.
Yeah.
And it's like when I met Rick Griffin, the cartoonist.
Yeah.
I was with the Dead, and I was a Hell's Angel then.
Yeah, you hung out with Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry and I were friends, and I was friends with a lot of the guys in the Dead, but Jerry and I especially. And Rick had lost an eye. He had he looked like a pirate.
Yeah.
He had really long hair and that patch on his eye, and I recognized him.
Yeah.
And so here I'm at Hell's Angel. I'm one of the leaders, and so I get introduced to him.
How old were you at this time?
30 maybe.
Okay, so 1970 something?
Yeah, late 70s.
Okay.
And I said, Surfer Magazine. And he kind of looked at me and he goes, well, how'd you know that, man? And I go, I was a surfer, man. So him and I really hit it off, and, we were getting pretty close, and, he got killed. I think he got in an automobile accident or something. I don't quite remember. But I got off track here. But, John and I had been out surfing, and we stopped at, where Tony's Pizza is.
Yeah.
Fiesta was across the street.
I remember.
Yeah. And I don't know if Tony's Pizza might have just been getting put there.
Wow.
Because they made him move.
Oh,
you know the whole story about
Nope.
that? Well, I'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah.
So we're at Fiesta, man. We're getting I think you get 10 corn dogs for $1 or something.
Totally.
Yeah.
I've written about the 5 taquitos for $1.25.
Yeah, it was. I think they were 10 cents each.
Yeah.
This is like 1963, maybe. I don't know, 64. So we used to fight the sailors all the time, and it was like it was a sport,
Right.
And they like to fight us, we like to fight them, but nobody got shot, nobody got stabbed. It was
Right,
just a
just
fist
good
fight, and it
times.
was over with.
Right.
Man, and so John says, hey, there's a swabby walking there. And he goes,
Swabby.
sailor.
Swab the deck.
Yeah. So he goes, there's a swabby walking there. He goes, nail him, man. So I have the big taquito box, and I hanging out the thing, and I chuck it, and I nail it right in the top of the back, and the guy goes down.
Jesus.
And we go down to the beach, and we're down there drinking white port and lemon juice, and big bonfire, Silver Strand. And Duty comes, and he's pissed, man. You can tell by his whole demeanor. And John says, what's up, Duty? What happened, man? And he goes, some motherfuckers just hit me in the back of the head with a box. So I'm going to confess to Duty because I got to tell Duty what happened, And John's looking at me going, no.
Better not.
So everybody starts yucking on Duty.
Yeah.
Even though Duty's the top dog,
Yeah.
we play hard, And I don't know the guy's name. I don't remember his name, but he makes some comment. He goes, well, how in the fuck could you miss that big fat fucking pineapple head of yours, Duty? He's a Samoan, a big dude. And so Duty and him start arguing. So they start fighting.
Yeah.
Duty cleans his plow. The guy's on the ground, and Duty's mad now. He's leaving. And John and I are getting out of there. Everybody, it's all breaking up. And the guy yells, he says, "Hey, Duty!" And Duty turns around. He goes, "What?" And he goes, "You still got a big fucking head." I'll never forget that as long as I live, man. And
Such a
we all
great
bust up,
story.
get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
But that was their area, and I drifted over to Ventura, and
What was it like hanging out in Strand at that time? I mean, did guys come to Strand from other cities, or were
yeah, and
they
they
just
got
freaked
fucked
out?
up. Yeah, I remember cars, windows getting broken, tires cut.
I've heard cars would get they'd take the tires off, they'd
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
turn the car over and light on fire. Like it was nuts. I heard.
Yeah, it was pretty drastic.
And
Same thing in Ventura, though.
Okay, so
I mean,
Ventura was pretty bad too. Huh?
yeah, Ventura was very bad, and I
You have any specific memories of that area, like when you were surfing C Street, where you guys would?
well, we weren't locking the cars, and then the guys from South Bay would come up there,
Uh-huh.
and then shit was starting to turn up missing, and people were getting fucked up.
I remember a photo that I believe it was Art Brewer took of the wall that would have been north of the House of the Rising Sun. There was
Right.
a wall right before the fairgrounds.
breaker wall, like-
and it said, "Southers beware."
Yeah, beware. Yeah. Something to that effect.
Something like, "We will take your property." Or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it
and they did.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's heavy, man.
yeah, but it was like everything was very territorial, and you get the same treatment if you went down there.
Absolutely.
Like I'd gone down south, and you go down there with 4 or 5 guys. You don't go down there by yourself.
No.
And I mean, you'd go out in the water, and you'd figure there's a good chance we're going to wind up fighting on the
Yeah.
beach.
Yeah.
And
Super gnarly.
yeah, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of tension, a lot of aggravation. I remember there was like 3 breaks. There was like the pipe,
Yep.
then where the horse stables were, and then there was the California Point, and then there was the inner point.
Yeah.
And once in a while, Sanhone Road would you could surf there.
Really? Was
Yeah.
this before the jetties?
Well,
Sanhone Break?
Yeah.
There was a river mouth right
yes,
there.
there was a river mouth right there,
Oh, wow.
and
That's cool.
now I don't know where they're at. I've got pictures of me surfing there.
Oh, you gotta
somebody
find
put it on a DVD for me, and it's somewhere. I'm going to Texas next week
Yeah.
to do a lecture for Sam Houston College. Having me do some.
I love it.
Yeah, it's
So cool.
crazy, man. But hey, I'm rolling with it.
Yeah,
I'm enjoying
why not?
it. But I'll dig that out. I'm going to try to dig some pictures out.
Please do.
'Cause I just don't know where everything is.
Because when I write this, I want to have those photos to accompany the story, which
Sure.
is great.
Yeah, I think that just like I mentioned off camera to you, I remember going to Tom Hale's shop, and
Yeah.
those guys in there shaping with no mask on, nothing, just shaping, man, and
Yeah.
putting glass and resin on the board. First shaping it, and then we would go there and was captivated by.
You'd watch the whole process.
Yeah, just captivated, and of course Maury. We talked about. Coming up with the boards in suitcases,
Yeah.
and, the 2-piece boards. My friend Mike had one of the early ones, and,
Yeah.
because he kept threatening to go to Australia, so he
He got one of those.
he got one of
boards.
those boards. I don't know whatever happened to it, and then of course Maury came up with the boogie board and sold it to Whammo.
Yeah, yeah. Boy, what a
became a millionaire.
innovation for sure, which every human rode a boogie board, even in their pool,
Yeah, I mean, in the snow.
Yeah, right.
The boogie boards, man. They
Unbelievable.
were just incredible.
So, how, back then, how many people would be surfing at the point, or like hardly any, right?
No, I mean, I would go. I got a special I got my dad to say that I worked for him in his restaurant in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So my first period was some sort of work. I don't
They
know.
still have that.
They'd still have that
Yeah.
program. That was at Camarillo.
Yeah.
And so I would go surfing in the morning, and then I had to be. I think the second class started at 9:30, or I don't know. It started at 8 or 8:30,
Yeah.
and then the second had to be there for my second class. So I get up at 5 in the morning. I go surfing, and I mean, sometimes it was eerie because there was nobody there.
No wetsuits.
No wetsuits, man. I remember I was thinking this morning. I can't remember her name, but one of the girls I was hanging out with, she was a surfer. She wanted to surf, and it's middle of winter. She's out there in a bikini, and I get out of the water and I come to my car. There's like smoke coming out of my car. She's got my whisk broom. She's got it on fire, man. She's in my car, and I go, "What the fuck are you doing?" She goes, "It's cold, you know." And I'm like, "Get out of my car, you know." But
That's
just
epic.
crazy shit. You
That's
know?
wild.
Yeah, just crazy shit. And you know, like I said, there was I jumped off of. I mentioned Steve from the House of the Rising Sun.
Yeah.
Now, let's tell you how old and how long ago this was. This conversation. He goes, "Man, I got to show you something, man." He goes, "You think the Beatles are fucking cool?" And he's got some magazine. I don't know what it is. And he goes, "Check these dudes out. It's the Rolling Stones."
No shit.
Yeah, it was the first time the Rolling Stones. So Steve goes down to Santa Monica Civic, and it's James Brown, the Rolling Stones. It's you can see it. There's
Yeah.
a video of it floating around. And it's some sort of rock concert thing.
One of their first times in the U.S. You think?
Yeah.
62 or
But this is the deal. It's like James Brown thinks he's the headliner, but it ain't James Brown. It's these white kids from
Yeah.
England, you know. And Steve's telling me the whole story. He's down there with this whole thing. You know, he followed him down
Yeah.
there to check him out, and then James Brown's all pissed off. You know, they had to. I think somebody had to convince him that he was the headliner.
Yeah.
And
Now, did you ever? Okay, so that's interesting because didn't you, if I remember correctly, have conversations with Mick or one of those guys when that whole thing?
well,
went
that
on?
whole thing at Altamont. What happened was Rock Scully, manager of the Dead,
Yeah.
told the Stones manager, and I forget the dude's name. I can't think of it right now. Hey, you know, we usually have the Hell's Angels show up, and everybody behaves, and so they wanted us to come to the show.
Security.
Yeah, and but it wasn't like out and out security. It was like come and watch the equipment, make sure nobody fucks with it. But they made a mistake. Is what they did was when they got there, they parked all the bikes in the front, which is like a recipe for disaster because the crowd kept getting bigger and pushing, and then the bikes started getting knocked over, and that's when the shit all came down. It's like my friend Animal Paul Hibbets. He started hanging out with the question marks too. We hung out with the question marks
Yeah.
together. He went to Oakland and I went to Los Angeles. We became Hell's Angels. He's the one that knocked out Marty Ballins. We were like good friends with the Airplane
Yeah.
until after the concert.
Right.
And Marty got his feelings hurt. But he kept cursing at Animal. And he told Animal, "Fuck you, man." And Animal, it may sound ridiculous, but that's like one of the worst things you can tell a Hell's Angel
Yeah.
back in the 70s, maybe even now. And Animal said, "Hey, Marty, we're friends, but you can't tell me to get fucked."
Yeah.
And so Ballin was like, "Fuck you, fuck you." And he got ready to say the third fuck you, and Animal knocked him out.
Done.
And that's when Grace gets on. You ever seen Gimme Shelter?
No.
Grace Slick gets on there and goes, "Well, the Hell's Angels just knocked out our singer Marty," and then
Wow.
Sweet William gets on, grabs a microphone from her, and tells her this and that, and they go back. So it just really created a riff. So everything kind of settled down, and then the Stones went on, and Meredith Hunter, he was the young black guy, and if you, I suggest everybody see that movie.
I'm gonna watch
it's
it.
really a trip.
Yeah.
But Meredith Hunter points a gun at the stage,
Okay.
and you can see it as clear as day. And I don't know who he was shooting at. I don't know if I never could get a straight answer if he actually fired rounds up to the stage. There's all kinds of controversy that he was trying to shoot a Hell's Angel. It looked to me like he was trying to shoot up on the stage, one of the Stones. And Alan Pizarro stabbed him and killed him. And that's where the riff came from. Like,
And Alan Bizarro was a
Hell's Angel.
Okay.
He was a Hell's Angel from San Jose. Alan Pizarro stabs this guy. The concert. I remember Animal. I got a picture of Animal telling Jagger, "You got to finish the fucking set." It's on my Instagram.
Okay, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so they finished the show. The Grateful Dead never even went on. Jerry said, "Man, we bailed out," but they said they'd pay for any legal expenses. So we had a $50,000 legal fee for Alan. Alan got found justifiable homicide, I think, was a ultimate outcome. So then we started arguing with the Stones. You gotta pay us that money.
Yeah.
And Jagger's arrogant enough. He sends, I don't know, an emissary down to the 3rd Street Clubhouse in New York to the Hells Angels. And the guy goes, "The Stones aren't giving you a fucking dime. And in fact, if you keep pushing on us, you guys are going to get yourselves in a jam." And the guy lifts his shirt up, and he's got a gun stuck in his waistband. So the guys from New York immediately fucked him up, took his gun, pistol whipped him, and sent him off. And then it really escalated things. And this was in the mid 70s when that happened. And then by 1979, after Jagger found out we had sent some guys on a boat to blow up his yacht, that's when he decided he wrote us a check for $50,000, which I really thought was ironic. So a decade goes by, and the guys that got the check were going to keep the check, and I found out that they had got paid.
Yeah.
I found out through the Dead, and so I brought it up in a meeting. I go, "Where's that $50,000 check floating around?" And Moldy Marvin, he was like flipping out. "How'd you find out?" And I wouldn't tell him where I found out. So we wound up. It was funny. We wound up fighting over the money amongst ourselves.
Did you get the money?
We got the money. We got $50,000. Yeah, and that's what the lawyers cost. Huh?
I have never heard that story.
Yeah,
that's
that's a
wild.
true story. Yeah,
That is wild.
yeah. And,
Incredible stuff.
they gave us the money back, and then kind of like ruined our relationship with the Rolling Stones and Jefferson Airplane, like Big Brother and the Dead and all those bands, Paul Butterfield, all those bands were all still cool with us, but.
You used to pick up Jerry from the airport, right?
I did.
Like he liked you picking him up.
Yeah, he liked me picking him up. He felt very safe. And it's funny because Rock Scully would call me and say, "Hey, Jerry's coming in." He asked if you would pick him up. And I'd get calls to have people, picked up. Like Johnny Paycheck would call me. I'd send some of the guys, but Jerry wanted me to pick him up because he felt very safe.
Yeah.
But it was a trip, man. He'd tell me, "Don't look at the deadheads. Don't look at the deadheads," because they know that the Dead are coming to town, and people would be flying in on the airplane and shit, and then the fans would see him, But I'm Hell's Angel with all my regalia on.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna fuck with him,
No.
And I go, "Come on, man, we'll just buzz through the airport." He'd come off. This is in the 70s.
Yeah.
No security whatsoever in the airport.
Right.
He'd come off the fucking airplane with a briefcase full of dope, man, and heroin, cocaine, opium. He liked opium.
Nobody checked
Nobody
shit.
checked nothing, And we'd get back in the car, and he'd open, You know, he'd open the briefcase up, man, and stick his head in there and just start getting high. And so he's like paranoid as fuck, and he wants me to pull into a 7-Eleven because he wants me to spray paint the windows black on this. I rented a car. I thought I'll make him comfortable. I'll rent a
Sure.
big Cadillac and all
Beautiful
that shit.
caddy.
Yeah,
And he wants to spray paint
he wants
the
to spray
windows
paint the windows black so the deadheads can't recognize him. And he's always, don't make eye contact.
with the deadhead.
Yeah, he goes, when you make eye contact, it's all over, George.
His fans.
Yeah, and I would go.
Love it.
So I took him to my house up in Oakview, and I had a van.
Yeah.
And so I put him in, it was a support car for the Hells Angels.
Yeah.
And it was very plain looking on the outside, had a giant motor in it, and it had, the whole inside was all paneled, and there was table in there, and a bed, and a
Nice.
refrigerator. And so Jerry got in the van, and he was just like, he could breathe again. You know?
Yeah.
He was like, oh, man, yeah.
So in those times, the Dead would play at the Ventura.
They play at the fairgrounds.
And I remember in the 80s, there would be deadheads on the trail all the way up to the pipe,
Yeah.
sleeping.
Yeah.
And, you know, they would always travel
Do you know
with
what
school
happened?
buses. No.
Why they never came back?
Nope.
The Grateful Dead didn't like the way the Ventura police were treating the deadheads.
Really?
So they voted, as a band, they voted never to come back to Ventura again. I think they did the same thing in San Diego. Fans were treated real bad. And I think Bob Weir may have got choked out or something by one of the San Diego cops. I don't, only got sketchy stuff of the story. So the city council, off the record, asked me to come up there to City Hall, you know, above California Street. So I go, they want me to petition the Dead. They know I'm friends with them. They want me to petition the Dead to come back to town because they really hurt the economy
Sure.
when the Dead said, we're not coming back ever again.
That was the biggest thing every year.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, the Dead had voted no.
Yeah.
They would not come back. They said, respectfully, George, tell them that we don't allow our fans to be mistreated. The money's not worth it to us, you know.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so
End of an era.
yeah, so that was the end of it, you know. But what's interesting is I started promoting Garcia up in the Arlington, and then ultimately Bill Graham and I started co-producing Garcia as his popularity get bigger and bigger and bigger. We started promoting the shows not at the Arlington. It was too small of a venue. We'd promote them at the Ventura Theater. And,
Wow.
So Garcia would come back, and you know, you get a lot of the Dead people come, but the Grateful Dead as a band would not come back. But you know what's interesting though? Later, Phil Leash. I mean, he was playing down there. Just recently, you know, he passed away, but prior to what happened to him, he was playing down there. I mean, those are just incredible times. You know? You go to a Dead show, and Francis Ford Coppola's there, and I'm trying to think of he was a basketball star, red hair, big.
Oh, Bill Walton.
Bill Walton would be at every show.
Wow.
You know, I used to hang out with him, and then they'd have the most dangerous job in show business, which you know what that is, right?
No.
Piano player for the Grateful Dead, because they kept dying, you know.
Did they really?
Yeah, Pigpen did, and then
man.
I can't think of his name. The next guy died, and
So that became the joke as the most dangerous job.
in show business. The first time I went to the Grateful Dead studio, I'm over in Richmond with Angelo. Angelo was very, very close. And probably if it hadn't been for Angelo and Sandy Alexander from New York, I would have never got in with them as tight as I did. Because although they had relationships with the Hells Angels, certain people they had over and above the regular relationship. And I got kind of into that category. So Angelo tells me, we're over at his pad. It's the middle of winter. And we're drinking cocoa and snorting cocaine. And so he goes, you want to take a ride to the city? And I go, sure, man. You know, it was like a playground up in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And 13 Hell's Angel charters all saturated, So
Wow,
any
heavy.
town you rode to was like a party
Yeah.
happening. So he goes, let's go to the city. And I go, okay. So we go to the city, and I'm in this, man, I've never been down to this place before. And Angelo walks up. Angelo's got a key. And we walk in, and in the hallway, there's a skeleton with a paisley shirt on with a rose through his teeth. And I'm going, where the fuck are we? And so I said to Angelo, I go, where are we? And he goes, man, we're just going to have some partying. And I go, what the hell's this? And he goes, that's the most dangerous job in show business. And I said, what's that? And he goes, piano player for the Grateful Dead. We were at the studio, at the Wharf Front Studios. Or
Yeah.
the beat. I forget what their exact title was. And Garcia and Lowell George were there. Lowell George was producing Shakedown Street.
Oh, wow.
And we were there. We just snorted coke all night long and partied with them. And it was the most boring night and the most exciting night I ever had because they were doing 3 chords. They
Oh,
couldn't
shit.
get the chords right, And these guys are perfectionists. Yeah. And I'm like, they all sound the fucking same. I told Garcia,
right.
And, they were going, no, we haven't got it. And if anybody if you can get the album,
Yeah.
and if you look in the liner notes, Lowell George is thanking me and another Hell's Angel, Foo from Oakland.
No shit. Wow, that's killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've talked about Foo before.
Yeah, Fu Manchu, he was in prison with Timothy Leary.
Mm.
And he liked to keep Timothy Leary around so he'd have somebody intellectual to talk to.
Really?
Yeah, Fu was a trip, man. He had a master's degree he got while he was in Folsom Prison.
No shit.
And he was just a trip, man.
Yeah.
He had Charlie Magoo Productions. He helped him, Bill Graham, and Jerry Garcia and Rock Scully broke me into the music business as a promoter.
Really?
Yeah. And,
so how long were you in that kind of scene?
I started in the early 80s, and I did stuff up into the 2000s.
Who were you promoting, dude?
Well, Waylon Jennings.
Really?
Jerry, of course.
Yeah.
Crystal Gale, Johnny Paycheck.
Wow.
I tried to do the Chili Peppers, but they wouldn't let me bring them there because they took their clothes off. Remember when they did that?
Yeah.
They used to take their clothes off and come out with a sock on their cock. And they go, you can't bring those guys here. I wanted to take them to the Arlington Theater. And then
they wouldn't do it.
No, they didn't want them there.
Okay.
They go, no, man, they can't come on stage naked.
What if...
And, I said, what if this was the Age of Aquarius play or something?
Sure.
'Cause they all come on stage naked at the end.
Double standard there.
Yeah, but
that must have been fun. Kind of,
What's that?
That must have been kind of fun.
I had
promoting
a blast.
Stuff.
I'm still having a blast.
Yeah.
I'm going to be 80 here in a couple of years, and I'm.
Are you really?
I'm still riding my motorcycle.
Are you?
Yeah.
What kind of bike you got?
I've got a ultra classic with a sidecar on it.
Oh shit!
I got 2 hip replacements from an accident. Kind of. I think I would have had the hip replacements anyways, ultimately, but it kind of pushed it over the edge. But I'm doing these interviews. I'm doing these podcasts. I'm going to do a lecture, and
You're a busy
college.
man.
Yeah, I feel good.
I'm just super grateful you took the time.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I told you I was in Spain for 3 years, man, living like a king over there. A production company optioned my book Marked. They're going to turn it into a TV series, and COVID came.
Yep.
And then I think one of the dudes ran off with all the money, one of the producers.
Yeah.
and then announced his own death.
Professional swindler sounds like.
Apparently, man. That's where all the gangsters in Europe go. They go to Malaga and Marbella, in the south of Spain, man. That's where they all kick back.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's funny. There's an old movie called The Hit.
Yeah.
And it's about these Terrence Stamp. You know who Terrence Stamp is?
Mm-mm.
Oh, he's an old English actor. And Terrence Stamp ratted these guys out, and then he's hiding in Spain, you know,
Yeah.
and they find out where he's hiding, and they send 2 hitmen down to go kill him, but it just the movie.
I got to see this movie.
Yeah, you got to check it out,
Yeah.
man. It's hard to find, but it's called The Hit, and it's I can't think of the guy's name. He's an English actor. He's in Quentin Tarantino movies.
Oh, okay.
I can't think of his name.
I knew who you're talking about.
You know who I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah, he's a brand new actor in it. So, you know, I'm having a lot of fun. I'm working right now towards another episodic movie thing with Michael Madsen. I don't know if you know who Michael Madsen
Yeah, he's
is.
awesome.
Yeah, he's him and I've been friends for quite a while.
Yeah, he's rad.
And
So you're going to do a film?
well, I think it's going to be episodic. I can't say much about it.
Okay.
They don't want me to talk about it.
Gotcha.
But it's going to be cool, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, that surfing really was an outlaw culture, and I drifted right in, along with other surfers, right into the outlaw bike scene from there. You know,
Because Duty had a bike, right? And
Duty had a bike. Stevie Binger had a bike. Stevie Binger got killed on his bike.
Did he?
Yeah, he got killed on Gonzales Road
Wow.
in the mid-'60s.
Jeez.
You know, I lost a lot of friends over the years.
Yeah.
But you live this long, and, you know, it's...
So when Duty had a bike, is that what kind of influenced you?
Well,
Seeing that?
No, you know, I saw my first outlaw biker around 1955 in San Fernando Valley. I was with my father. This guy pulled up to the stoplight, man, and I was hooked.
Yeah.
You know, it's like... It's the same feeling I got when I started surfing, man. It's like I got hooked on it. You know what it's like, man.
Yep.
You get that fever, man, and everybody out there.
There's nothing that can get in your way.
It just hooks you, man. And the motorcycles did the same thing to me. But you know, I walked out of that the mid '50s with this image in my mind of this outlaw guy, and you know, I did a stage play. I wrote a stage play. I have a 2-hour stage play that I did for a while. Went around the country and did it.
Oh wow!
Got great reviews. And in the stage play, I talk about when I discovered I was poor. You know, and that was the image that came to my mind. I wanted to be that biker dude,
right?
Because nobody fucked with him, man. You know, he pulled up to that stoplight, and everybody around was looking at each other like, "Check this guy out, man!" And he had his glasses pushed up on his head, and
you remember all the details,
every detail. And at the time, I hear this noise, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And then later, I realized it was the ball bearings in the clutch basket the clutch was disengaged and the ball bearings were rolling.
Wow.
And that was the noise.
Yeah.
Anybody that's ridden a Harley, anybody out there that's ridden an old Harley, you know, you don't hear them anymore, but in the older Harleys, you hear those clutch basket, the ball bearings in the clutch basket. And it was just rattling and just the whole thing. And then when the light changed, man, he just, boom, right through that intersection. And the guy talking to my dad, he was just so upset. That guy upset him so much. And he looked at me and he spit on the ground and he goes, "That's your fucking America."
Wow.
And I was like, I'm all in, man. That's my America. You know, metaphorically, man, I jumped on the back of that motorcycle that day.
Left a huge impression on you.
Huge impression. And then, you know, I, 12, 13, 14 years old, man, I start, you know, here comes the Beach Boys. And that's a whole nother trip. I went and saw a Beach Boys concert one time.
How old were you?
Probably 35.
Oh, okay.
And they were tripping out. What are the Hells Angels doing?
Oh, okay. You were deep into that.
And they were just like,
"What are these guys doing?"
You guys are a fucking American institution, just like the Hells Angels, you know? And this is no bullshit. Him and Dennis Wilson and I really hit it off. Of course, he drowned shortly after that, but I'm not responsible. Dennis Wilson, just took us to all the band members, and Brian was there, and they put fucking a chair up on the stage for me and my wife to sit in,
Oh,
so we
shit.
could watch the whole show.
Front row.
Yeah, like stage row, man.
Yeah.
And it was just like I was reliving my youth that night as a surfer.
Yeah, so when you were young and the Beach Boys came along and that beautiful sound and those
then
songs.
you had all the other albums that came out.
Pet Sounds. And,
Yeah, but then there was all those the Ventures and Dwayne Eddy.
Yeah,
and
Dick Dale.
Dick Dale. Like Dick Dale was very cool. We got in a fight with Dwayne Eddy one night at the truck stop in Camarillo.
Of course you did.
Yeah, but it was so cool. After the fight, everything was good. Everything was good. Yeah.
Wild.
But just some wild times. I think about him. I dream about him sometimes.
You have vivid dreams, don't you?
Really vivid dreams.
Always have.
Yeah, really vivid dreams. I just had one a couple of nights ago, and somebody was with me, and I'm a felon. I'm a multiple felon. I can't be around guns, and they had a gun, and they were with us, and I was going, man, get that fucking gun away from me, know. And
wow.
Yeah, but it's
interesting.
Yeah.
So when they bulldoze those homes for the promenade and the fucking Holiday Inn, what was that about?
Well,
you were there, yeah?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was there. They decided these homes got to go, and I think there was and I think history repeats itself usually.
Yep.
And I think that there were people, the city fathers, if you will, that thought we got to get these people out of here before all this development starts. And they were saying, condemn, they're not healthy, and all that bullshit.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, they're building the boardwalk. They're structuring Holiday Inn, all the apartments. Those things burned down twice. All the framing for the apartments down there in the Holiday Inn. Somebody firebombed it.
They just didn't want that shit.
They didn't want it there. And they were doing the freeway. They ruined Stanley's surf spot.
Yeah.
They ruined piers. Remember the oil piers?
Yep.
Did you ever surf there?
Yep.
Yeah.
One of my favorite spots to surf.
Yeah, but, the break changed when they put the freeway in.
Yeah.
All that stuff changed. Remember Tanks?
Yep.
That was another one of my favorite spots. All that stuff changed. They
So
put the
all this
freeway.
kind of happened at the same time.
same
This had to
time.
be a fucking shock to you.
Development. Yeah, it was a total shock.
And then they
I
started.
don't want to say it was instrumental in making me drift out of the surfer lifestyle. But a lot of people were real despondent about it, man.
That's interesting. I never thought about that, but looking at it now and seeing what it did to that whole fucking area as a surfer, I would have been.
Oh, it was
pissed.
Devastating.
Yeah.
Here, let me tell you. So, back in the old day, do you know where Pirano's restaurant is? It was a delicatessen.
Oh yeah. By
now
Maine.
Yeah. In the little park right there.
Yep.
Do you know that used to be a street that went through?
Yes.
And Tony's Pizza used to be on that street.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Tony's Pizza. We used to go over there for pizza at night, and then the friendly fights would happen.
I was gonna say you're smiling like you got in trouble.
So then the friendly fights would happen. So they took Tony. They kicked him out of there. Said we're closing the street off because of the fights. And they gave him, where Tony's Pizza is now.
Yeah.
Right? They gave him that little piece of property there.
Like a gold corner, that is.
Yeah,
man.
and then, they came back to him about 15 years later because Tony, I used to go see Tony just to bullshit with him.
Yeah.
They wanted Tony to give it back to him. The city wanted it back. they go, come on, Tony, you're a good Venturian. Should give us this piece of property back. Because God only knows how much it's worth.
Oh, with the little houses
Oh
next
my
to it and
God,
the
yeah.
surf shop.
Yeah,
Oh, I
yeah.
bet they want to bulldoze it and put a nice 5-story,
Yeah,
you
and they
know,
won't sell it,
these bastards.
Yeah, but I thought that was funny,
Yeah,
Tony's Pizza, man, but it was
that's
Tony, man.
cool.
He didn't change a bit through the years,
Yeah. Well, you didn't.
Yeah, well, I guess not. But you love that guy, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tony's
I
Pizza,
love
man.
that spot. And of course, now it's so iconic. And
It is.
yeah.
And the nerve of them to ask for it back.
Well, thank God he just said
No,
no.
he
Fuck
said,
off.
go fuck themselves.
Yeah, go fuck
And he
yourself.
laughed. Did you ever meet him?
No.
He would always, every time I'd see him, he'd go, George, George.
Yeah.
And then he was telling me about they wanted because he knew I used to go down there when he was on the street.
Yeah.
And then I don't think he really remembered me, but I
Yeah.
knew the story, so
Sure.
he knew I was there.
Yeah, that's cool.
But he would go, yeah, they want the land back. He says, fuck them. I loved it, man. I was going right on, Tony. Don't fucking give them nothing, man.
So you've seen the city really change, man. What do
I
you?
have, and I wanted to make a comment.
Okay.
I think that the only reason the Ventura College didn't go in above the avenue, I don't think they wanted the dynamics to change of the financial dynamics of the city. You know how much that property would have been worth on the avenue. I mean, it's worth a lot of money now,
Yeah.
anyways. But I had a piece of property on there that, over $1 million. But God knows how. If they would have put that college in overlooking the avenue there,
Yeah.
the west end of town.
On the ranch that's up there. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember that college was supposed to go
Yep.
there, and they wound up going over at the haunted mental health
Rio Hospital.
hospital, where all they used to take all the drug casualties in the '60s over.
There's some stories about that place.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that would have been devastating. Taylor Ranch up there, for those that don't know, they were going to put the new college, the new UC system up there, and thank God I think that might have been when the initiative to not build on farmlands, I can't remember what it was called, but they passed it.
They did something.
Yeah, and so that was shot down, but that they were going to build, I can't even remember how many units, but we would be staring at, big college campus up there, which would just be devastating, because I love that backdrop of that beautiful ranch up there.
Yeah.
So cool.
And well, it kind of drifts you up into the Ojai Valley. They've been talking about building a freeway on stilts up the Ventura River for years, instead of the 33. But
we're constantly under threat from developers.
Sure.
I mean, from LA, these guys are living down in LA, and they want to LA this whole fucking area, And I see what's happening in Oxnard.
Sure.
Where Wagon Wheel was.
The Wagon Wheel.
You got some stories.
Yeah, I was doing a Wagon Wheel, man. Roller Gardens. Remember Roller Gardens? Yeah. You go over there. Saw the Four Seasons there. Roy Orbison, Dwayne Eddy.
Nice.
All the,
Awesome.
what the hell were those? What was that local band's name? They had that one hit, Hot Pastrami.
Hot pastrami.
Hot pastrami.
What year was this?
63 or 64. And then Martin Smith had the Colonial House, and they had the guy out front, and they had the big protest from L.A. They had the black guy out front with he had like a little towel, and he would wave you into the. And then the civil rights people came up here, man.
Said you can't do that.
That's what they said. You can't do that. We used to stop and give the dude money, and we'd throw him beers. We'd pull up and throw him beers so he could drink while he was out there working.
Talk about when you were, say, a teenager, driving age. What did you guys do around Ventura? Like, what was the bitchin' stuff to do back then?
Well, we would go to Oxnard and
so nothing.
cruise.
So you'd leave.
Go to Oxnard and cruise.
Yeah.
Fight the sailors. we'd go down to, we were laughing when my wife Beverly was here. We'd go down to Port Hueneme and poach the women,
Yeah.
and Ventura had a cruise, up Main Street, and then all the way down. Then you'd go around where Tony's Pizza was,
Yeah.
and then the cops, they didn't want you doing any of that stuff.
I remember cruising Main Street in the early '80s, and then they shut it down.
Sure,
They wouldn't let us cruise anymore.
They didn't want you to have fun.
Yeah, my older brother, who was 5 years older than me, he would put me in his truck and go, "Let's go. We're going to show you. We're going to cruise Main Street." And we just slowly. He had shined his old IH 1962 IH, and we'd cruise down Main, and he'd go, "Put your arm out the window," and I'd be this little 14-year-old.
Yeah, sure. Got to have your arm up, man.
Yeah, it was cool, man.
And it's funny, like that. Robert Hunter, I think, wrote that song from the Grateful Dead. The cops busted me for smiling on a cloudy day.
Right, any reason.
Yeah, they didn't want you to have any fun, man.
No.
And
so you guys go to Oxnard. What else? What else was there to do back then?
surf.
And have bonfires and
Yeah,
shit?
I could tell you what at the end of Seaward. If you look on my Instagram page, there's a picture of a bunch of bikers fighting, and that's an actual event that took place in Ventura in about 1973.
Where in Ventura?
At Seaward.
Oh,
At the
okay.
end of Seaward.
Okay.
It was just nothing down there.
Yeah.
And we used to go down there. We ride our bikes out, and it wasn't like sand. It was like dirt, and we'd ride our bikes out there. And we were out there one time. We must have been 5 or 6 bike clubs out there, and we all started fighting. And Dave Mann, you know who Dave Mann was? Dave Mann was a famous outlaw biker artist guy, and he would do all these different drawings of actual events in the motorcycle culture
Wow.
that happened. And that picture of the fight down there is at the end of Seaward.
Oh, that's cool. I'm gonna have to look at that.
Yeah, and we just all wound up fighting each other down there. And like the cops never came.
Yeah.
We probably fought on and off all night long. We'd start fighting, then we'd stop, and then somebody'd say something again, and then there was like I said, 4 or 5 clubs down there.
Yeah.
And
Did you hang out in Pierpont much?
no, not really.
No.
Trying to think of. There was a lot of tension down there.
Yeah.
Back then. And
Did you surf down there at all? Not really.
well, not really. There was no surf. We kind of stuck to the 3 places in Ventura. Stanley's and Tank, but then in Oxnard, by the power plant over there,
Yeah.
there was some big waves over there sometimes.
Shores.
Yeah.
Did you go down to Hueneme at all?
No, never went down there. But
No
Silver
need.
Strand.
Yeah. That was as far south.
Yeah. But we would go south, but it was usually like a big trip.
Yeah.
We get 4 or 5 guys and go down there. Because, like I said, you don't want to go down there by yourself
Yeah.
because it didn't work out.
So were there big? When we surfed in high school, we'd surf all day, and then there'd be a big party somewhere.
Sure, yeah.
Did you
Always
guys
was
do
a
that?
party, man. Yeah.
Load up in the car and a bunch of
Right.
dudes and
Yeah.
roll up, and then you're looking for chicks and the whole deal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And drinking and drugging, or just drinking, or
all of it.
all of it. Yeah, you got to do it all, And we had such incredible times, man.
Yeah.
The parties and at the Ventura Clubhouse, we used to have just huge parties down there. And,
You used to have big bands there.
yeah.
Buddy of mine told me his band played there.
Yeah, we had Big Bad Voodoo Daddy played there.
Yeah.
And what would be cool is like Tommy Lee would show up because he wanted to check out and hang out with the Hells Angels and Pamela.
Oh, because he was a motorcycle dude
yeah,
for a while. Yeah.
right. Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
He was into it.
And I had a bar up in Santa Barbara that the cops kept trying to tie me to. And,
Yeah.
yeah. I owned part of it, but they couldn't prove it.
What bar was that?
I forget the name. You walk downstairs. You went down. It was up on State Street. It was off like you're on State. Turn off on like going up on the left side. If you're walking up straight, upstate, turn left on one of those little streets. You go about a half a block, and
it's a downstairs
it's a
bar.
down. Yeah, you walk downstairs, and this was in when they indicted me in 2001. They indicted me on like 59 counts on state racketeering and all kinds of shit.
What
Income
does that mean, racketeering? Can you explain that?
tax. Well, that I was I had a continuing criminal type enterprise going, and they consider certain things racketeering charges.
And did they just drum up all this bullshit?
Yeah, I mean, it collapsed under its own weight. They did get me. They said I owed $300,000 in back taxes for 1 year, and I wound up. I audited. I did my own audit with the state franchise tax board. I had to pay $1,100, and so it went from 300,000 to $1,100. The case, they dropped all the charges on the case, but that was one of the things they were trying to prove I owned a bar up there, and they couldn't. They could never tie it in.
Yeah.
And
Did you do time in this whole thing?
well, I did. I went to prison in 1986.
Which prison?
To 87, Terminal Island Federal Prison.
Damn.
I beat that case, but I had to stay there a year. They wouldn't give me bail. And then in 2001, I had to spend a year in solitary confinement
For what?
for the racketeering.
Why did they
case.
put you in solitary?
I don't know.
That's
Just
insane.
control. And then in 2011, they said in 2007 I ordered some fire bombings, and which was complete bullshit. So I wound up in 2013. I went to prison in Texas for a year. I pled out on that case because I was looking at some really serious time. If I would have got found guilty on count 6, 7, or 8, I would have had to done a mandatory life.
Are you kidding?
Arson is a very serious federal offense.
Okay.
And they said I ordered the firebombing of these 2 tattoo shops, and they couldn't prove it.
Yeah.
But
Where were the tattoo shops?
in Ventura. But I didn't want to take the chance. My daughter was my lawyer.
Yeah.
And she says, they want to send you to Texas for a year, man. Just show everybody they taught you a lesson.
Yeah.
And I said, let's go. I'll go to Texas for a year.
Let's go.
And now I'm going back.
So, oh man, that's heavy. Terminal Island.
Yeah, Terminal Island. I was down there with Mike Franchise, Rosanna Gambino. I was down there with all these. I met a lot of mob guys down there.
Yeah.
And I became friends with them. Still friends with Michael Franchise.
He's got a good podcast.
He does have a
too,
good
yeah.
podcast. Him and I just did a podcast
Yeah.
together. It was just like was on fire.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I watched that. That was really good, actually.
So as I'm getting ready to leave, all these mob guys from New York and California and whatnot, they're giving me their phone numbers, and so I get home. And this will tell you how long ago it was. I put them in my Rolodex.
Oh, jeez.
You had a Rolodex back then.
Yeah.
And so the cops raid my house, and they find the Rolodex, and they find all these mob numbers, these mob guys. So they tell the newspaper. So the newspaper calls me up. And they said, George, we're going to run a story about the raid, and we want to give you the opportunity to respond to our question. I said, okay, what's that? And they said, why would you have all these mob guys' numbers in your Rolodex? And I said, well, I also had David Carradine's, Sean Penn's, and Mickey Rourke's. I said, but I'm no actor.
Right.
So
Good point.
And the newspapers loved it,
Yeah. Did Sean Penn talk to you about a film?
No, I've never talked to Sean about that.
I've always been fascinated.
Mickey Rourke and I talked about some stuff when he was real hot.
Yeah.
Michael Mann You know who he
Yep.
is? A director. He
Yep.
he was interested in doing some movies, but I was too busy being a Hell's Angel at the time,
Yeah.
and I didn't want it to interfere in anything I had going.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Michael Mann, and then who was the director? Tony Scott.
Tony and I were very good friends,
Yeah.
and he was going to do a movie on the club, and it just a lot of problems with it, contractual problems, trademark problems with the indicia and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. And I got in a big fight with the attorneys at 20th Century Fox, and kind of was the end of the.
That's not a group you want to get in a fight with, right?
Well,
Those attorneys have deep pockets.
they do have deep pockets, and they we were bartering back and forth across the table, and one of them made a comment. I said, the Hell's Angel name and logo will not wind up on a Happy Meal. And one of the lawyers go, well, what's wrong with that?
Oh,
And I got up and left. I go,
they didn't,
that's I've heard enough, man.
they don't get it.
Yeah, and I said, people died for that patch. I said, it may mean nothing to you. It may mean a big payday for you. But I go, this is what we signed up for. But, it didn't affect my relationship with Tony Scott. And I think if he would have lived, ultimately something would have happened.
Yeah.
But do you know much about Tony?
I just know that he jumped off a bridge.
Yeah, well,
It's just nuts.
yeah,
Doesn't make sense to me.
no, it was very confusing. We had our hip replacements done at the same time. He was in one hospital and I was in the other.
Wow.
He was calling me. We were seeing who was going to walk first.
Yeah.
And I beat him by
I
a
guess
day.
you did.
Yeah, I beat him by a day.
Yeah, that's tragic because he was so hot at that time.
He was.
I mean,
And, his brother Ridley, still continues to make great movies.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when you got your first patch, that was a huge deal.
Huge.
And you rode down to San Bernardino.
San Bernardino to
And
Betty's.
Betty sewed that on.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
I can't remember Betty's last name, but we got voted in. I'm standing out by the fire, and old man John, huge guy.
Yeah.
And
Describe John.
John, between 6'4", 6'5", huge hands, man. Truck driver, always smoked a cigar. The guy was so old school. If you look on my Instagram, there's a picture of him, and he's got his regular reading glasses or glasses on, and sunglasses over him. He's wearing double glasses, man. Like he just don't give a fuck. So he opens the door, and steps out onto the porch, and just door goes black because he's so big.
Yeah.
And he's, Christie, get your ass in here. And I'm a prospect, I run into the clubhouse, and all these Hells Angels are in there, man, and they're just checking me out. And I go, man, I'm thinking I know this is it. And, basically he gives me the rundown. You're going to step into this world. You leave your old world behind. We come first. Your family comes second.
It's heavy.
Lays down all this shit to me. And then they eventually give me my patch. And I swear, man, I was looking at it. And that death head on the back, man, every time I moved, it looked like the eye was following me, man. I was tripping. And so we jump on our bikes. He says, we're going to go down to Purdue. We're going to get you your patch. So we go down to San Bernardino and wait till the sun to come up. And Betty opens, and we go down to Betty's, and we wait in the little waiting room. She's in there, man, making my patch.
Wow.
Sewing it on my Levi vest. And then she tells us, you're not allowed to cuss in there.
Yeah.
You can't cuss or smoke at Betty's. She's like a religious gal. And she was like old, man. When I went down there and got my patch on, I know she's long gone, but she tells us no speeding when you leave the street, and so we all start our bikes out front, man. I get about halfway down the street, and I can't help it, man. I just twist that throttle, and I'm gone, man. Everybody jumps in, and then we jump on bikes, go back to Los Angeles to the Clubhouse in Glendale, party there. 2 days later, jump on our bikes, ride to Oakland, man. It's New Year's,
Wow.
you know. That was like gone a couple of weeks.
That's insane. You guys covered so much ground,
Yeah,
man. But you love that shit.
I live for it, man.
Yeah, the wind blowing in your
Yeah,
hair, the
yeah,
pipes
yeah,
blasting,
yeah.
just
It's just, I know I was talking about, somebody wrote me, I do, like my little Patreon podcast, I do a Q&A every week, and I was talking about the riding up to Harry the Horse to his funeral in middle of winter, man. And I remember, you know how you have those bank signs where they have the time and the temperature?
yep.
I remember looking up and looking at the temperature. It was 22 degrees, man.
Damn.
It was like,
And you got your Levi's on
yeah,
and
it was like freezing,
sleeve
man.
jacket.
Yeah, just freezing, man. You know, it's funny. And then later, you know, I broke off into, I started wearing Patagonia. And remember when Black Flies was real popular? I started wearing Black Flies stuff. And Wall Street Journal calls me up, and they're doing a history of the leather jacket, you know.
Oh wow.
And so I drop all this stuff on them. I go, man, that shit's for squares, man. I go, I'm a mountain man, you know, Patagonia and Black Flies, you know. And that's what I was wearing at the time. I was
Yeah.
wearing Black Flies snow gear,
Yeah.
snowboard gear. You know,
Yeah.
I put on a whole Black Flies thing and
Oh, that's funny.
get some Patagonia stuff. But
Yeah.
like I had some long credit with Black Fly, man.
Did they send you stuff?
Yeah, they were real cool to us. They used to have a party every year, and that's where I met Rodman, the basketball player. Yeah, he was fucking crazy, man. Yeah. We were all down there taking ecstasy and running amok and partying, and he's a real physical guy,
Yeah.
you know. And but they would have a party every year to thank all their supporters and stuff.
That had to be a party, man.
It was unbelievable. They ran a whole theater. It was, I don't know the name of the theater, I can't recall, but it was a little bit bigger than a Ventura theater. And they would have, you know, the top-notch entertainment.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of that band. The guy OD'd up in Ventura, or the night before he came to Ventura. They were out of Long Beach. They turned into the L.A. All-Stars or something. Long Beach
Oh,
All
LA
Long Beach
Dub
Dub
All-Stars.
All-Stars.
Yeah, I don't
But the
remember
band
that guy.
before that, I can't remember the name of the band. But
Oh shoot, I don't remember
you know who
who
I'm
that
talking
was.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'd all be down there playing, and just great
Killer
great
shows,
times.
huh?
Yeah, just great times, man.
So I'm seeing your tattoo. You did 4 years in the Marines.
Well, I was a Marine reservist, but I actually did over 4 years. I
Yeah.
did close to 5 with
Blinky.
Blinky. Just went into the Shapers Hall of Fame. I
Yeah.
think. Didn't he get inducted into that?
Yep.
And,
So talk about that a little bit.
well,
You and Blinky were together in the.
he was my platoon leader.
Wow.
And I remember one time they called for us to come up. They wanted us to overtake some hill. We were doing war games. And he said, man, our whole squad's loaded, man. We were all fucked up on LSD. We go, ask second squad, man. You know, we can't take that hill right now. And all the fucking flares were going off and shit. You know? We were like tripping. But, you know, had meetings once a month, and, you know, Blinky was down. A lot of guys from Ventura down there. A lot of surfers.
Yeah. Were you still surfing at that time when you were first in the?
Club, when I first got into Hells Angels, I was still surfing. I had made the transition to a smaller board. Leslie Wong hooked me up with a. Remember Leslie Wong?
Yeah, I was going to talk to you about Leslie also.
Yeah, Leslie hooked me up with a board.
He was an incredible surfer.
He was incredible, and you know, I don't know what the. I think he got caught slinging some dope or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know he influenced a lot of people, including like Davey Miller.
Yeah, sure.
He talks about
Davey.
Yeah.
I love Davey.
You know Davey?
I know Davey.
Yeah.
And
he's a cool cat.
and yeah, Leslie was. They lived on Ann Street.
Okay.
This old house down there, like 4 or 5 of them lived down there, and he was just way ahead of the curve on surfing.
Yeah.
Man, you know?
I just heard he was such a style master.
Yeah, And when I was in Terminal Island, there was a lot of guys. They didn't have a prison over there, so
Mhm.
they'd bring the guys from Hawaii to California and put them
Yeah.
in Terminal Island. And there was a lot of I don't remember their names, but they were like big name surfer guys
Okay.
from the islands.
Marvin Foster.
I don't know. You
I
know, they
think he
got
did
caught
some time.
slinging
Yeah.
pot and
Yeah.
ice and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you and Blinky are in the Corps
Marines, right.
Marines, and where were you guys stationed?
There was a platoon out of Port Hueneme. We had our own. We had Marine Corps Reserve Depot out there, so
Okay.
we had our whole little unit. We were an infantry company, 0311.
Okay.
We were riflemen, and there was a rifle unit. But
And then
we kept thinking we were going to get activated
Yeah.
to Vietnam. That's when you joined that unit. That was the first thing they told you. You know,
Yeah.
we're getting activated.
Yeah.
And the idea was I wanted to, if we were going to go to Vietnam, I wanted to go with people that I knew and I had some background with. And I can't think, there was a lot of other surfers that were over there at the unit. But me and Blinky, I had forgot that Blinky was my platoon sergeant.
Really?
And I ran into him right before I left for Spain just to kind of say goodbye.
Yeah.
And we started talking. I go, God damn, Blinky, I forgot about all that, man.
He put on. I helped organize an event for Blinky to show all his historical stuff.
Right.
And I had no idea he was in the Marines. So
Sure,
yeah,
yeah. He was a sergeant, I think.
Yeah. Wild.
He you know, Blinky pretty together. You know?
Yeah, well, he's an icon of Ventura surfing
Sure,
history.
right.
I mean, there's so much history that we need to preserve, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about
Right.
these things, because I have so many people asking me about that house and about that time, and you get it stories from Blinky or you get it from somebody else.
Is there any
And-
pictures of that house around?
Yeah, I
There
got them
are.
right here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'd love to see them. I haven't seen it
But
in years.
yeah, when you mentioned that, I was just like, wow, I need to talk to George about.
Rosinetti, I don't know. I think he was an artist. He wasn't a surfer.
Resinetti
Yeah.
on that house. I forget who brought it up to me. It was, I can't remember, but they said, I mean, you may know the dudes in this picture. And then you can.
Yeah, there's Chuck Crisp.
Oh my God. And that's the area you were there.
Yeah. Except I don't see the bomb on there.
Oh, it was outside.
Yeah.
Oh. And then you can scroll. There's other shots of that house. On the same post.
Oh, the same post.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I see.
There
okay.
you go. A couple other shots.
Now that looks like the El Camino that had the cover on it.
Right, huh?
Yeah, that's it, and it's all of its glory, man. What a trip.
Is that bringing back some memories?
Oh, man.
That's wild.
They just bulldozed all that shit down.
It's unreal, huh? That had to be shocking, Like your whole past was just dozed.
Yeah, it was just like heavy.
Yeah. That's wild that you recognized. Yeah, and then this was, I found out that the first house was owned by this family. The Kennett family. So that's when it was.
That name sounds very familiar.
That's when it was this iteration, right? A nice, respectable home, family home. And then after that, I don't know how it became, the surfer's house, but I guess the Canets moved out and life moved on.
Now look, it looks like you can see the horse stables down here.
You can, because that's the 40s, I think.
Yeah. It's fucking awesome, man.
Isn't it great?
Man. Yeah, it was.
I love history, man. It's just
That's some good stuff.
Yeah, it's just great. Well, I don't want to take too much more of your time, but I think we've covered a lot.
Okay.
And unless you got some other stuff to talk about. Yeah.
That's just the beginning.
Yeah, I figured. I wanted to cover that area because
and that's a good area to cover.
Yeah, you always touch on it, and then no one ever says, "Hey, talk about it." They'll just go. They want to talk about.
They want to talk about Hell's Angels.
Yeah,
for sure. But this stuff's important, and I don't know. It's funny. 100 years from now, will they talk about that house?
Probably not. But unless we keep it alive, right?
Yeah, and
I hope there's a kid out there somewhere that reads my stuff. There's a couple little teenagers that are like, dude, I love your stories. And those will be the kids that want to carry on historical stuff,
Yeah, there was I was trying to think of my first wife, Cheryl. Her sister was going out with one of the best surfers in Ventura. I can't think of his name. He was, he blew my mind, man. Like, first time I saw him in the water, because I met him through my girlfriend at the time. And then I saw him surfing. But there was a crew of guys from the 50s, and he was part of that crew.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There was another guy that was a stockbroker, I think.
Okay.
And he was another early pioneer here in Ventura, but I guess I can't remember their names.
Yeah. I think you've mentioned one of those guys' names in a past. I'll have to dig and find. I just can't remember either.
Yeah, I know. I'm having trouble with names lately.
Yeah. I want to look at a couple of these questions, make sure I don't ask or I don't forget.
Okay.
I think we covered most of the things. I see. Okay, so how about names like Vaughn Lamars, a.k.a. Big Bird, Birdie Bighead?
Birdie Bighead.
A fellow surfer.
Right.
Who I think you had spoken about. He had introduced you to motorcycles in the outlaw culture.
He did. He actually introduced me to David Ortega, who really became like my right-hand man in the Hells Angels.
Okay.
We met in 1966. He thought I was a cop. I'd come home on a liberty from the Marines, and Bird introduced me to him. And he, back in those days, people thought that if you asked somebody if they were a cop, they had to identify themselves, which was bullshit.
Right.
So, he said, "Are you a cop?" I was all offended, and we wound up smoking a big fat joint.
Right.
And,
so before they bust out the drugs, they got to go, "So are you a cop?"
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
if you say no, okay, good.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy,
So I can't get arrested.
So Bird became. He hung out with the question marks with me. David Ortega was already a question mark, and David Ortega went to. It's a funny story. It's not. Some people, it's not funny. To me, it's just my off sense of humor. David goes to San Quentin for pot. He winds up in San Quentin, does like about 3 or 4 years up there for some pot.
What a joke.
Comes back, and David had completely changed. He was a pretty tough hombre now. Mm-hmm. And Normal's, just remember Normal, the marijuana thing, the legislation thing? And so this guy petitions David to sign the whatever it is to get marijuana legalized.
Yeah.
And David tells him, "Go do your fucking time like me." The guy's like looking at me like, "What was this all about?" But
Classic.
David, that's a perfect example of somebody going to prison and coming back a real dangerous guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Like prison changes people for the worse.
Yeah,
right?
he came back. He was a completely different guy. I mean, you know, my best friend for till he passed. But you know, we were. I mean, you got to imagine the Hell's Angels are talking about how prison changes guys.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a pretty big statement.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. They're like, holy shit. This
Holy
guy's-
shit, did prison fuck this guy up
guy's
or
crazy.
what? You know, we had David Ortega. We had another guy, Doug the Thug, that had been sentenced to shock treatments.
Damn.
And they were entertaining the thought of a lobotomy.
In prison.
Yeah. And,
Damn.
And you know, broke him out.
Yeah.
And, but, you know, there's another guy. You know, how do you wind up with a name like Doug the Thug?
Doug the Thug.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had some classic nicknames.
So, you know, there's another example of prison doesn't work.
No,
Yeah.
no. Let's see. We talked about duty, Juarez, localism, Blinky. Wow, I actually covered most things without even looking at my list. I'm shocked.
So you're a professional.
Yeah, I guess. I play one. What is something that you learned from all those years of being around that violence?
It's not productive.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this. In order to be an effective peacemaker, you got to be willing to go to war.
Yeah, right.
You know, and it sounds like a contradiction, but you know, I went all over the world representing the Hells Angels. We had a war going on in Denmark, Finland, all these Nordic countries, and I mean, these guys were blowing each other up.
Really?
And you know, one of the things that was confusing to me was, where are these guys getting all these weapons?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I found out each town had a militia, and the armory was at the end of town, and the weapons were locked up with a battle lock.
Really?
So these guys were going there snapping the locks on these armories, and you know, getting these they were shooting rockets into each other's clubhouses, having gunfights on the street. They had a gunfight in an international airport.
Wow.
So
in Denmark.
In Denmark. So I go to I go to Denmark. No, I go to Amsterdam. That's where I went. I flew to Amsterdam and started initiating, you know, these peace talks. And it got so bad over there that the Scandinavian governments petitioned our governments to let two very dangerous men into our country, the leader of the Hells Angels over there and the leader of the Bandidos. And they got special visas to come in, and we had a special phone number. If anybody from law enforcement interfered in the peace talks, we would give them that number, and they would call Washington, and Washington would tell them to stand down. That we were trying to end this war over there.
Interesting.
And it just finally came out. It was kind of a secret, but there's the Rise and Fall of the Hells Angels was a documentary, a 7 or 8 part documentary I was part of. It's playing in HBO Europe.
Okay.
And if somebody could find that, it's pretty interesting. How the cops did all these unscrupulous things, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we were killing each other. I think, I'm not sure how many people got killed in that one.
You got a lot of fans overseas. I know that I see a lot of comments on your daily post from guys that are in Denmark.
Sure, yeah. I'm getting ready to interview Janka, and his book. This is an interesting story. His book that he wrote after he killed the leader of another bike club, the leader of this other bike club, his name was Mackerel. And he killed Mackerel on the street in
Wow.
Denmark, machine gunned him to death. And broad daylight. Yanka goes to Paris, hides. He's hiding in Paris, writes a manuscript of what led up to the shooting, and takes it to a publisher. And the publisher is having a crisis of conscience. Should I publish this manuscript or not? Is it ethical or not? Decides to do it. Yanka's leaves for Canada. We get him sneak him to Canada. We get him in Canada. He's hiding in Canada, and then he gets homesick and decides he wants to go home. So now his book is in print, and it's one of the best sellers in Denmark.
Wow.
He goes home, turns himself in, goes to prison. Sentence, it's a life sentence for murder. But life sentence over there is like 15 years, 12 years. And they let him out to go on a book tour while he's in prison.
Wow.
So while he's in prison, the banditos want revenge, and they hand grenade his prison cell and shoot it up with a machine gun. They think they shoot him 2 or 3 times. But I'm just getting ready to interview him. What I'm leading up to, his book just came out in English.
Okay.
And I'm helping him push his book over here.
Is it available here?
No, but I'll show it to you when
Okay.
we leave. You lost your light?
I did. It's not detrimental.
A battery?
Yeah, it's okay. You guys keep going.
All right.
So anyways, that's what I got going.
Did you, wasn't there a situation at the Clubhouse in Ventura where there was a bomb or something that you had to, or some bomb threat? Or...
Well, we've actually had 2 bomb explosions at the Ventura Clubhouse on Fixaway. We had one satchel charge type bomb, and we also had a hand grenade thrown in the clubhouse.
Oh, okay. That's the one that went, kind of rolled under.
Yeah. It looked like a trailer hitch going across the floor. David Ortega thought it was a trailer hitch. He goes, "What? Why would anybody throw a trailer hitch in here?" And then it exploded. But what redirected the explosion was it went off under a steel chair.
Okay.
And so instead of going up, it went across. And it blew every tire in the clubhouse. It blew it flat.
Damn.
Yeah, didn't no shrapnel in it. It just blew it flat.
And no one got injured?
Well, David got injured.
Oh, okay.
But could have been worse.
Yeah.
He's okay. Yeah.
And then what was, there was a story where you had to transport a bomb.
Well, the guys in L.A. set a bomb at the Mongol bike shop, and it didn't go off. Mm-hmm. And because I had argued with them, I thought it was a bad idea because of the collateral damage it could cause. Old man John made me go back and get it, just to prove I was on board.
You and another dude, and
Me
you
and
had to
another
carry
guy,
that
Jesse.
thing in the back of the...
We wound up putting it in the back seat, I think. We were going to put it in the trunk, and we kept thinking, well, where's it going to, we just decided
Doesn't
if
matter.
it goes off, we're gonna dead anyways, man. We had a armory in town with 2,000 pounds of dynamite, anti-tank, British anti-tank gun, and we had machine guns, silencers, lathes to make the silencers, handguns. It was an armory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's well. You talk about that. It was a fucking war.
Yeah. Well, we were fighting a war. Yeah.
It's really incredible.
Yeah. It was pretty wild.
And what was that situation, talking about war, where a guy brought his tire down to be worked on, and it was a bomb?
The first attempt was the one I recovered. After that, I said, I'm not getting involved in no explosions. And one of the guys came up with the idea to stuff a tire full of dynamite and use the valve on the tire as a detonator. As you extract the valve, it brings up, and the connectors connect, and the bomb explodes. And there was rear tire stuffed with dynamite, and it went off and killed 2 guys down there.
He said, I want to get my tire at the end of the day.
Yeah, he said, I need my tire, man. And he goes, I'll give you extra $40 if you do it right now. And the guy goes, okay, I'll start on it right now. Give me about 20 minutes. And probably the last tire he worked on.
Yeah, I would think so. That's incredible. You got some wild stories.
Well, we can always do this again, man.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, George.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, man. You get what you needed?
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate it.
Yeah.